So now we're going to come over to our pole. Now, you can do this right on the ground, or for me, I'm actually going to elevate myself up onto my knee. And to be completely honest with you, the only reason that I'm doing that is that my yoga mat can't actually fit between my two things here, and I just don't want to shuffle my mat around because honestly, I'm a little bit lazy in that regard. So if I just put my yoga block behind my pole, then I've got something soft to kneel on, and I'm going to cozy myself right up in front of it. So I'm going to take my knee and I'm going to place it right at the front of that pole. Now, again, if you don't have a pole, don't sweat it. A door frame also works if you don't have a giant wall on the other side of your door frame. If you've got a door frame and then you've got two walls going this way, then awesome, you can cozy right up into it. If you've got a door frame but it's got two walls going this way on either side, this might not work so well. But like I said earlier in this class, you actually don't need this. I'll talk you through what it would look like with the pole, and then I'll talk you through how you can do it without. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my knee right up against my pole if I have one. I'm going to take my thigh and my hip and I'm going to put it right up against my pole as well. And then my other leg's going to be out in front, so we're in that half kneeling position again. Now here again, I like to multitask. So I'm going to be up in big toe extension on my back foot as well for a lot of this time, working on that toe extension because that's actually necessary when walking in order to access hip extension. So if your big toe extension lacks, you can't get your leg as far behind you. It limits hip extension when you walk, and limited toe extension can now suddenly cause limited hip extension, and it's not uncommon for that to be the case. So it's just kind of a happy accident that we can be in toe extension here while we work on hip extension. Again, not necessary, but something you might want to try. So now we're glued to that pole. I'm going to wrap myself around this thing, partially for emotional support because what we're about to do is going to be hard, but also to help give myself a sense of stability and really help to isolate my hip and ensure that I get a ton of feedback from the front of my leg regarding what my pelvis is doing, what my hip is doing, what my spine is doing, and so on. So in this position, you can actually get into a stretch by just taking your pelvis and rolling it back underneath you, which will kind of bow the front of your hip into your pole. So then you can get a nice, good stretch in the front of that hip, and then you can just hang out there and stretch for a little bit. Now, if you don't have a pole, all good. What you can do is find anything, say a piece of furniture or otherwise. You can do this right on the floor, or you can go up on a block if you prefer. Let's say we don't want the block, because now I've got a nice cushy mat to be on, so I really don't need one. Same thing, I can go up into big toe extension on the back, half kneeling in the front, grab onto a piece of furniture here, 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 anywhere that you have accessible to you. And then you're going to go exhale, roll that tailbone under you, which is going to kind of bow you into the front of the hip, and now you're in the exact same position. The only thing is you don't have that feedback tool in the front of your body, which is fine, you don't need it. But I'm going to need you to be monitoring your pelvis, your hip, etc., and try to stay in a straight line between your knee, your hip, and your shoulder without letting yourself bend and without your low back tipping into what we call anterior tilt. So I need you to keep that tailbone rolled back under you, stay in the front of that, or a stretch in the front of that hip the whole time. Now, whether you're on the pole or you're in this position, everything else is going to look exactly the same. You just have to be consciously aware of what's happening. The other people that have a pole or a door frame or anything like that, they get to use this to kind of monitor themselves, or like I said, as a feedback tool so that they can kind of keep track of what's going on with the rest of their body. So we're in this stretch. What we're all going to do, regardless of what position we're in, is when I say so, which won't be yet, you're still just stretching right now, but when I say so, you're going to think about trying to drive the front of your leg through that pole, okay? So it's as if when you're in this position, whether you're on the pole or down here, you're trying to bring that leg forward, but you're not going to move at all. You're going to be working the front side stuff, or the stuff that you feel stretching right now. So anything that you feel stretching should start to engage, and you're going to maximally engage that. We're going to all drive as hard as we can forward. If you don't have the pole, I like to imagine that I have a really heavy weight right in front of my knee, and I'm trying to drive my knee forward into that weight. Okay, use your imagination. You don't actually need the weight. You don't actually need the pole. You can get the same amount of return on investment out of this exercise with or without these things. Then when I say so, we're going to throw it in reverse, and we're going to go from working front side stuff to working back side stuff, and this feels hard and it's uncomfortable. Be ready for it. When we switch to working backside stuff, what you're gonna do is you're gonna try and take your tailbone and tuck it underneath you further and kind of get yourself to a point where you almost feel like you're bowing into the front of your hip even more, not by doing this, okay? You're maintaining that straight line, but just by rolling your pelvis under you, that's gonna feel like the head of your femur, the front of your hip kind of bows forward or comes forward a little bit, and you're gonna be working all backside stuff to do that second part. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you're really stiff in hip extension, you might want to hit pause and bank a little bit more time here. If you feel like you're ready, let's dive into it. So I'm going to join you. I'm going to glue myself to the front of this pole. I'm going to grab my emotional support pole here, wrap myself around it. And now, with 10% effort, we're lightly going to start driving our leg forward, either into our imaginary weight on the floor or into our pole if we have one. Then we're going to increase to 20%. 30, 40, nice slow climb, 50, we're not going 0 to 100, we're slowly ramping up, find 60, 70, 80, should be getting really hard now, 90, and then your greatest, safest pain-free effort in holding that. So maximally trying to drive that leg forward. You are not moving at all, though you're staying in that stretch the whole time. Bear with me as the snowblower comes in here. It's gonna get loud for a little second, or a short second. In 3 seconds, we're gonna reverse. We're gonna go the other way. 2, 1. Now think, roll that tailbone underneath you. Bow the front of your hip forward or bow into the front of that hip and into that pole if you have one. And we're gonna hold that for another 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax, but don't go anywhere. We still got one more round here left. Now, I'm gonna come out of this pole, I'm gonna come into all fours, you're gonna stay exactly where you are, but again, just so you can see what it looks like if I'm doing it without a pole, and so that those of you doing it without a pole don't feel left out, we'll do our second round here. I've got my imaginary block in front of my knee. I guess not imaginary block, my real block in front of my knee, but it's an imaginary weight because I'm gonna think about driving my leg forward. That block doesn't need to be there at all for this exercise. I'm gonna hang on to something here for balance. We're all gonna jump into it together here. With 10% effort, we're gonna think about swinging our leg forward or trying to flex our hip, but we will not move at all. This stays in a straight line the whole darn time. Find 30%. Give me 50, 70, 90, and as hard as you can, working that front side stuff. It should be burning. We're gonna hold that for another 8, 7, keep going, 6, I'm here with you, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then you're gonna throw it in reverse, think tuck that tailbone underneath you, bow into the front of that hip, work that backside stuff to grab as much hip extension as you possibly can, and make the straightest line you possibly can, thinking get as tall as you can through that leg, and we're holding that for another 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then slowly relax.